So this is the bird adaptation experiment. It's really useful for talking about evolution and how different animals adapt to different environments. The bowl here represents a habitat, and you create different conditions for different birds to exist in.
So the first thing you're going to need is a bowl for your experiment to take place inside of. The next thing you're going to need are some slips of paper. You also need a scooper for each group. You also need some ping pong balls, some pinto beans or any bean. You can use some pieces of yarn. You're going to need some chopsticks, and you're going to need a little clippy. You can substitute any of the materials for anything that you just happen to have laying around. The only thing that's important is there's something round, something flat, something small, and some yarn. Really, yarn is the only thing that you're going to find that's going to act like this. And then the clippy thing, the chopsticks, and the scoop should remain the same. So we have 3 different tools that represent 3 different beaks. This sort of connects to Darwin's experiments on the Galapagos with the finches with the differently adapted beaks to the differently adapted food sources. So we have a little clip which shows sort of like a pinching beak of a bird. We have a scoop which shows sort of like a pelican-like bird or another bird that's really good at scooping. And then we have chopsticks, which would be a stork or a heron with a very thin, very specialized beak. And then we have a variety of food sources that would be available in our habitat of the bowl. First, we have some pinto beans. This could be easily picked up by the scoop. It would be easily picked up by the clip. The chopsticks would have a difficult time with it, but they would still be able to pick up the beans, even if it was more difficult. This is a food source that would be closer to the bottom of the food chain that a lot of different things could eat. Then we've got some slips of paper. The chopsticks would be less good at this. The scoop would also be slightly less good at this, but the clip would be really great at picking up this paper. So maybe we could suggest to the students that this clip could have evolved to specifically be able to pick up this paper. Then we've got some ping pong balls. These are much more difficult to scoop. It's impossible for the clip to be able to pick up the ping pong balls. The clip just won't fit around the ping pong ball. The scoop can pretty easily pick up the ping pong ball, and the chopsticks can do it, but they'll have a very difficult time. But you can definitely tell your students that this scoop is definitely specialized to these ping pong balls. So maybe the bird evolved to be able to use this food source. Then last but not least, we have the string. The string is best suited to the chopsticks, although it can also be picked up by either of the other 2 tools. This food source is something that would be primarily eaten by the kind of bird that resembles the chopstick. You can replace any of these materials with pretty much anything you have lying around. The only thing that really needs to stay consistent is the string, because that's the thing the chopsticks are best at picking up, and there's not really anything that's string-like that you can replace it with. Once you've divided your students into groups, each group should have 1 bowl and habitat, and then you can add your food sources to it. Add the beans, the paper, the ping pong balls, and the yarn, and then mix it up. You just want everything to be visible from looking underneath the bowl, looking into the bowl. So once you've done that, assign each student in the group 1 of these tools. They can rotate, they can change in different rounds, but assign 1 student 1 tool. Then you can start the timer and have the students rush to get as much food as they can into their space. So you'll say go, and they'll all have their tools at the ready, and they'll pick up as much stuff as they can in the time allotted. Once the time's up, you can count up all of the kinds of food each group member was able to collect, and then you can use this as a jumping off point to talk about adaptations and how different animals can evolve for specific food sources.